Today, I'll be talking on consent, records, and insurance. Statistics shows that almost 90% of ophthalmic malpractice cases in past few years terminated in favor of the ophthalmologist. So these statistics bode well with us ophthalmologists. But always there is this nagging question: if there was no sufficient ground for this legal issues, why the complainant in the first place took the action against the doctors? So here comes the importance of consent, records, and insurance. According to Section 13 of Indian Contract Act, consent means to agree the same in the same sense. It is based on the Latin maxim volente non fit injuria. That means he who consents cannot complain. So it is based on two facts. That is, number one, a patient is the best judge of his own treatment. Number two, a patient will never give consent if he thinks something is harmful to him. So it refers to the provision of approval or refusal, particularly and especially after thoughtful consideration and understanding. There are basically two types of consent: implied consent and express consent. Implied consent is where the consent is presumed. Suppose a patient is walking into a clinic. That means it is presumed that he has given consent for examination and consultation. It is the common consent that we use in our day-to-day practice, but it should be done only for procedures which are routine and doesn't involve any significant risk. However, this implied consent is legally ineffective. So now we come to express consent, which should either be oral or written. The oral or verbal consent is given verbally. It should be taken ideally in presence of a neutral third party who can act as a witness. And whenever a verbal consent is taken, it should be mentioned in the patient's clinical record that we have taken a verbal consent in presence of a proper witness, so that it can, in future, we can use it as a evidence. And in written consent, the patient gives the consent in writing, and we can use it as documentary evidence. From now onwards, we will be mostly discussing about informed express consent, which is a written consent which the patient gives after understanding the whole procedures. So what is an informed consent? It is actually not only a document. It is actually a process which begins with the first encounter with the patient and continues throughout the process of treatment. So signing a document or a form is only the end stage of this cumulative process, not the focus of the consent. So why informed consent? Why it is necessary? Because it is the ethical responsibility of the doctor to respect patient's autonomy, and of course it's a legal requirement. It's no longer an option for us. We have to take the consent because it is a must under current guidelines and regulations. Coming to different elements of informed consent, there are some essential consents and some additional consents. First, I'll be discussing about the essential consents. There are 8 essential consents. Number 1, first is the purpose. The patient should know about the purpose and nature of the disease and the treatment. He should know about the risks and benefits involved in the procedures. And the patient should also know about any alternative treatment available and the risk and benefits of that alternative procedures. He should be aware about the extent of confidentiality which is to be maintained, and if something untoward happens, if some compensation will be awarded to him, he should know whom to contact for queries, and of course that should be voluntary participation. If the patients at some point refuse any treatment, there should not be any loss of benefit. Coming to additional elements, this is mostly used for patients who are under medical research studies. They should be informed about any risk which may be unforeseeable. They should be also informed about any additional cost, consequences of his withdrawal from the research, any new findings, and number of subjects who are included in the study. So what constitutes a valid informed consent? There are 3 basic requirements: disclosure, capacity, and voluntariness. Disclosure means provision of relevant information by the clinician and its comprehension by the patient. So patient should be a doctor should provide all the information to the patient and patient should able to comprehend it. Capacity refers to patient's ability to understand the nature and consequences of the treatment offered. Voluntariness means patient's willingness to undergo treatment without any force, coercion or manipulation. So according to section 90 IPC, criteria for patient is person should be mentally sound, he should be above 18 years of age, he should not be under any threat, any misconception, or he should never be intoxicated. But there are some inherent difficulties with informed consent. Sometimes doctors use technical language which is very difficult for the patient to understand, and there is uncertainties which is intrinsic to all medical information, and many a times we are very worried about harming or alarming the patient while disclosing all the facts and all the risks of the treatment. But the most common cause is that most of us are always in a hurry and pressed by multiple duties, so we don't give sufficient time to the patient. From the patient point of view, there may be limited understanding, the patient may be inattentive or distracted, or he may be overcome by fear, anxiety or any unusual social or religious belief to give the consent. So there is nothing like an ideal consent, but a good consent form should have complete and accurate information. It should be in compliance with the regulation and guidelines, and it should be written in short, simple, understandable, culturally sensitive language. There are some special situations like blanket consent. Here we don't take consent for any specific purpose. A broad consent is taken, but this is a vague and this is invalid. Then there is another consent like proxy or surrogate consent. Here the patient himself doesn't give the consent, but somebody else give consent for him, like in case of a minor, his parent or a legal authority can give consent. There is another thing called advance consent or living will, where the patient gives consent in advance so as to in future he can terminate his disease, terminate his treatment if he is not in a condition at that time. So it is otherwise also known as living will. Then another is doctrine of loco parentis. It is used in case of emergency involving children. Suppose the parents or any legal guardians are not available, then we can take consent from the person in charge. Mostly, suppose a school teacher brings a child to the hospital after an accident, we can take the consent from the teacher. Then consent of spouse is essential if in some important cases like artificial insemination, sterilization or abortion or sperm donation. There are some cases where consents are not required, like medical legal cases, emergency, where the consent is issued in the interest of the community, if a person is suffering from disease under notified category, and in cases of prisoners. So before going to medical records, I just want to show a consent should never look like this. It should be voluntary by a person of who should be mentally sound, and it should be without any force or manipulation. So let's be honest to ourselves and to our patients. Now coming to medical records. Record is an encrypted information that can be retrieved at any time. Medical record means it is a clinical, scientific, administrative and legal document relating to patient care. Why it is important? It is important both for the patient and for the doctor. For the patient, it is important for documentation of his clinical history, continuity of treatment. It is also important for claiming insurance, issuing medical certificate, and it can act as the patient can use it as legal evidence. For the doctor, it is important for medical review of treatment, research and publication, and assisting in legal proceedings. For hospital also, keeping medical records is important because they can do future planning and decision making based on this, and it also has medical legal protection for the hospital. So a medical record should be complete, adequate, accurate and legible. The components of medical records are identification sheet involving the name, address, age, sex, religion, diagnosis of the patient, clinical records which include history, physical examination, observation, the progress and referral notes, doctor's advice and treatment sheet, nursing records, death or discharge summary records, and all the investigation reports. Here I just want to give importance to the discharge summary records, because this is a piece of paper which the patient carries with himself and he can use it as a evidence against the doctor. So we should all take care while writing the discharge summary. It should be a mirror of the case note, and it should carry all the instruction to follow, when to visit the doctor next, and all the say signs and symptoms where he should come to the doctor immediately. Coming to the retention schedule, according to MCI, all the records should be preserved for 3 years, and suppose in a medical legal case arise and the court wants the record, it should be acknowledged and issued within 72 hours. But according to an order passed by Maharashtra court, OPD papers should be preserved for 3 years, Indo papers for 5 years, and in medical legal cases, it has to be preserved at least for 30 years. This ownership of records lie with the hospital. It is not a property of the patient or the attending doctor. It is the property of the hospital. It can be used as a personal document for the patient or the doctor, or an impersonal document for medical research purpose. The confidentiality has to be maintained for the medical record. The file is retrieved only when the patient attends follow-up for research and academic purpose, for medical reimbursement, and for medical legal purpose. Now, just coming to insurance, I'll finish it early. The thing is going to be really worse for we doctors. We have to survive this through this new reality. During the past 2 decades, there has been major changes in the risk management environment. Previously, ophthalmology was thought to be a low-risk specialty with high premiums, but now it is considered as a high-risk specialty. This is due to more subspecialization and new technologies which has enhanced the patient's expectations. But a good thing is that group practices have come up, and due to group practice, we are working more effectively and more collaboratively, so there is decrease in insurance claims. The most common source of malpractice is cataract surgery, followed by refractive surgery, and then pediatric ophthalmology. Why do doctors need insurance? Because it is very essential to cover the professional indemnity and to meet the claim of compensation. The medical indemnity insurance is here since 1991 December. It acts like a life insurance company. We have to pay some premium. The amount of premium depends on the specialty of the doctor. What a doctor should do on receipt of a complaint. The first step taken by the doctor on receipt of the complaint is to inform the insurance company and furnish the copy of the complaint. An insurance company should always be made a proper party or a co-respondent. If the doctor doesn't disclose the details about the insurance company, he has to pay the compensation first to the patient, then claim it from the insurance company in a separate proceeding. So, to save time and money, it is always advisable for the doctor to disclose all the details of the insurance company. Usually in civil cases, the insurance company take care of all the charges. In criminal cases, it take care of the payment of the lawyer charges. And in some insurances, out-of-court settlements is also a clause. But insurance doesn't cover any criminal act, services rendered while intoxicated, any procedure under GA outside hospital, use of any miracle drugs or cosmetic surgery. But I just want to end with this slide. Still, the best insurance policy is care, concern, and consideration. Thank you.